Take a hot cuppa and relax. It's Afternoon Karak with Aisha Al-Mazmi and Mikhail Atiyah.
On Pulse 95.
Yes, it's a new week, a new grind here on the Afternoon Karak, as you guys know. For the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be running the show solo as Aisha is going to be enjoying her summer vacay. But don't worry, I'm going to be holding down the show for her as long as I can. And I always have you and you always have me. So grab a hot cup of Karak and let's get into the magic hour. As you know, Afternoon Karak is the hour to cover all sorts of entertainment, from video games to movies to internet culture and a few memes here and there. So let's start off with our first story. I'm going to be talking about the next generation PlayStation virtual reality headset, the one that's going to hopefully come out for the PlayStation 5. Sony has confirmed that they are developing this, but now we have details on when it could be possibly releasing, as well as a few interesting patents registered by Sony as to sort of give us an expectation on what sort of renowned technology is going to be utilized on this device. Also, a new movie that's coming out next month and starring none other than the bizarrely iconic Nicolas Cage himself. As you guys know, he has quite the career in acting, and this movie is called Pig. Now, I saw the trailer for it, and I'm telling you from now, it has a weird mix of, think of it as John Wick, right? So instead of Keanu Reeves, you got Nicolas Cage, and instead of the dog, you got a pig. Now, that sounds weird, but I think it's weird enough that I might watch it when it comes out. So I'm going to give you guys the details for that as well. Also, Disney seems to be very open to indie game developers using its property. Now, this is a big story and a big stride for Disney, because for a while, a lot of their properties never really seen the light of day in the world of gaming. And it seems that now there's a huge shift for something where we might see even more of Disney characters or Disney intellectual properties in games here and there. And I'll tell you why that is very important for not only Disney, but also game developers as a whole. Also, I'll be talking about Facebook. It seems that they're going to be updating their community standards as they've clarified what they consider to be satire. Now, social media is always filled with misinformation or even information obesity, but where is the line drawn when it comes to something that is downright offensive or just satirical? Well, let's read into their community guidelines and find out. And guys, if you ever feel like you want to join the conversation, please do text me 4215. It's a lot or do. We'll always love to hear from you guys. Also, we have our live stream up on our YouTube channel at Pulse 95 Radio. So stay tuned, stay locked, only here on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It was a couple months back when Sony confirmed the development for a next generation virtual reality headset. Now, we already know that there is a PSVR on the PlayStation 4, but of course, it does have its pros, it does have its cons. One of the biggest issues with that headset is it utilizes I would say a bit of a downgrade in terms of its controls, using the PlayStation 3 Move controllers as its gyro control mechanism. But this is a next-gen VR headset, and we actually gotten a glimpse into the controllers themselves, but still not the headset because there's still a lot of mystery behind it. However, Bloomberg has just recently reported that the next generation PSVR will be planned to launch as of late next year. So we're talking, by the end of 2022, and that puts the headset's release at roughly 2 years after the PlayStation 5's launch. Also, Bloomberg has reported that Sony is aiming to use Samsung's OLED panels for this next generation VR device, as it is as technology itself is much newer and it's becoming more common on more smart TV, expensive television, but they want to make sure that this VR headset is still affordable for the general audience, general market. The PlayStation VR, as called right now. It's still called the 2.0. Still doesn't have an official title. We're just going for the 2.0 at the moment. But the fact that it's coming out as of, I would say, as of next year, by the end of next year, one thing I will say is that it seems like at least this VR headset will be coming up much earlier than the one before it. And this is great news. I mean, we don't have to wait too long for this VR headset to come out. And one thing that I always keep an eye on is Sony's patent registration. They register for all sorts of new features and technological innovations. And one of the patents that they actually have recently is basically Sony is going to add one more camera to the PSVR setup, which would give players a more immersive experience that could improve the VR gameplay. So the way this works is that it's going to be using cameras, mainly one from behind you, to register the player's surrounding before using a green screen technology to separate the player and help fill the gap with PSVR games data. And the gameplay data would adjust to the player's inputs and the camera's views and use those to respond with fully interactive environments and mixed media video. Now that sounds like a whole lot of techno mumbo jumbo, but what it means is basically any virtual reality, one of the biggest issues with it is its limitation in terms of how much of yourself is in the virtual world. And it's usually limited to the camera that's in front of you, as it takes basically the scan of the headset, and all you see is the environment that's in front of you. But usually when you try to look back and like do a 360 view, most of the time the camera cannot register that because it's not able to actually capture the headset from behind. So having a camera from behind allows for, I would say, 180 to 180, making it 360 full, I would say camera scanning of your environment, which allows you to be in the virtual environment a lot more immersively than with one camera. Of course, this is just a patent, so what this means is just a hypothetical feature that Sony could or could not be using for the final release for the PSVR 2.0. Again, this is still very exciting news, and the fact that we don't have to wait too long, I know it's going to be by the end of next year, but think of it this way, it's releasing much earlier than the previous PSVR, and we still have no news about the headset itself, if there's any exclusive game developers who are making specific games for it, which I know they are, because you can't just release this thing without some sort of launch title. But I'm still very excited for this. I cannot wait to get my hands on a PS5 as soon as possible, and then hopefully try out what Sony may be calling the next generation of virtual reality. But you guys text me 4215. It's a Salat Urdu. I have a question for you. What is the best VR headset out in the market? I kind of want some people to, just kind of flex on me and just ask and just basically say, oh, the HTC Vive is better. No, the Valve Index, the PSVR, whatever it is. Let's get into a VR competition and text me again, 4215. It's Salat Urdu. What is the best VR headset in the market so far? Coming up next, we're going to be talking about a new movie that's coming out next month and starring Nicolas Cage. The trailer just came out for it. It's called Pig. Now you're wondering, what is that and what is it all about? Nicolas Cage, don't worry. I'll keep you guys informed right here on the Afternoon Karak, so stay tuned.
Pulse 95.
Nicolas Cage. Now that's a name that's quite infamous in the world of entertainment. He's an actor known to play some of the best movies out there and even some of the worst, and also some of the weirdest. Now, you may not know this, but almost every year, Nicolas Cage is pumping out movies. And I think you guys don't notice them because those are like B movies. They're not really the straight to DVD kind of films. Rarely do you ever see them go out into theater. But despite all of this and the controversial history that sort of plagues Nicolas Cage, I have a lot of respect for this guy because he, year in, year out, he's quite the hustler. And that's why I respect him. And so, as of next month, there is a movie coming out sometime in July 16th, and it stars none other than Nicolas Cage himself. Now, the movie is called Pig. Now, just from this title, I'm like, okay, what is up with this? But from looking at the trailer, what I understand is that it is quite a bizarre film. So the film it stars Nicolas Cage as this guy named Rob, who is a truffle hunting chef who mostly keeps himself in a cozy cabin in the Oregon woods. And he has his trusty little truffle hunting pig to keep him company. But one day he wakes up to find that his pig has been stolen, and it's time to look for the people responsible. Now, this already gives me the John Wick synopsis. John Wick, he's a secret assassin, and his dog gets kidnapped. Next thing you know, he just goes hell loose on the city, trying to avenge his dog. So, already the premise is weird, but I'm really into it. And just from also looking at the trailer, we get to see him actually enlist the help of a truffle salesman to search for his beloved pig after she gets kidnapped. And there's moments where you can see Nicholas, or at least the character Rob, just filled with absolute rage. This is a person who has kept himself secluded from the world, and the only thing that he ever loved, he ever cared for, has been taken from him. And so there's like these moments where you could just tell he's about to erupt, And there's this one quote, I'm trying to find it from the trailer, but it really enticed me, honestly, just the way he said it. He says, and the thing is, he used to be a chef, but now he lives in the woods and he just, hunts truffles. But he says in the trailer, he says, I remember every meal I ever cooked. I remember every person I ever served. You live your whole life for them, and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. And he says, we don't get a lot of things to really care about. Who has my pig? And I'm like, okay, somebody give him back his pig. And it doesn't show anything violent. I think that's the charm of it, is it leaves the element of surprise for the movie if anybody's interested. But I can tell this is going to be one of those movies where they're going to go all out. This is almost like a vengeful story of some kind. And it has this mix of the movie Babe, that innocent movie, as you guys know, Charlotte's Web. It has that with a mix of Taken and a touch of John Wick and an extreme version of Nobody. I feel like it's mixing all of these really great elements to tell this type of story, and I'm all for it. Guys, this is John Wick, but instead of Keanu Reeves, we get Nicolas Cage, and instead of a dog, we get a pig. Now, this movie coming out at July 16th. Again, the movie is called Pig, and I'm definitely gonna have to watch it. So excited for this. I'm just excited to see Nicolas Cage coming back like this, and playing roles that are quite surprising. A lot of actors kind of do this, and when they do, it's a movie, or at least it's a character worth watching. But guys, if you've gotten the chance to watch the trailer, do let me know. Text me 4215. It's a lot or do. Also, we have our live stream. You can join in. I have the live chat. I'm always keeping an eye on that. You can go to Pulse 95 Radio and tune in for all of that action. Also, coming up next, I'm going to be talking about Disney. It seems that they're open to indie game developers using their properties. Now, this is a really big shift for Disney. As we know, most of their properties never really see the light of day in the world of gaming. But this could be a necessary shift, one that I think even indie developers much need. Okay, so let's tune in for that and so much more right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
last week we were covering the biggest gaming event of the year, the E3 2021 showcase. And when it came to Microsoft plus Bethesda's showcase, one thing that really caught my eye, and I remember looking at it, I'm like, oh, well, that's a very interesting little development, as Rare Interactive announced that they are teaming up with Disney to make an expansion content for the Sea of Thieves by adding none other than Jack Sparrow and also the world of the Pirates of the Caribbean into a pirate-themed game. And I'm thinking, well, this is a really interesting collaboration, and one that I didn't even realize this game needed until they announced it. And I'm thinking in my head, how is Disney going about, allowing this, But then again, I'm thinking for the past couple of months, we've been getting all these announcements from Disney and their associated game publishers such as Electronic Arts. As they've been for a long time working on the Star Wars franchise, and now they're actually they're gonna run out of the exclusivity very soon, which allows Ubisoft now to step in, and they've announced that they're also working on an open world Star Wars game of their own, as well as Ubisoft working on an Avatar video game, which again is a property of Disney. And so with all these interesting announcements, the senior vice president of Disney Games, Sean Shoptow, said that Disney is really happy to be working with the best of developers, specifically with those who came to them with interesting ideas and interpretations that they had never really realized they could do. And so when asked what is meant by the best, and if it included indie developers as well as big budget AAA titles, he confirmed that all were welcome and hinted that there is already something along these lines in the works. Now, this gives me the idea that Disney really wants to expand their Disney properties into video games. And now, it doesn't mean this is the first time they've done this. They've done it throughout the years, but somehow it never remained consistent. I do remember they worked on this really big project. It was a AAA title game called Disney Infinity, which was a sandbox action-adventure game, and it would act as a hub for Disney properties to coexist and for people to play in. But for some reason, it just never worked out. With every update, it just didn't sell enough copies. It didn't sell enough of these, what we call these Disney toys that people would use to plug into. It's like something similar to Skylanders, where you'd use the toy and you'd summon the character in the virtual game, but it just wasn't commercially as successful as they thought. But it seems like this time they're really shifting gears here and are working a lot with big AAA partners such as Ubisoft, Bethesda, and Electronic Arts. However, they are really interested in having indie developers who have real passion and a vision for a story of theirs or a character from the Disney universe that they could utilize into a video game. And the senior vice president says, I think that you'll see a lot of stuff coming out over time here that really back that up. So yeah, it's not just the big guys. The big guys are always really important partners, but he says that we're hoping to also have a couple of indie developers step in to actually take advantage of Disney and Pixar collection of intellectual properties and really tell sort of, craft experiences that are more personal and that are more indie. And I think this is really great for Disney. It's a shift that is much needed, and hopefully it's a way of taking advantage of the vast library of intellectual properties and putting them into the world of gaming. But again, we're just gonna have to wait and see as we get slow developments on this. But what is here I want to ask you guys, text me 4215 into Salat Urdu. What is a Disney property that you've always been dying for it to be a video game? Either AAA or, just an indie style kind of video game, do let me know. Text me 4215. It's Slot or do. I always would have loved a Moana video game for some reason. But we're not talking like a movie tie-in. We're talking like its own thing, like a complete voyage, experience with open world and just really cool action adventure mechanics. But again, this is just a fantasy that could someday become a reality. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about Facebook. They have recently updated their community guidelines, and it states that they are actually looking into what is considered to be satirical in terms of the content that people post on Facebook. And the big question here, what is the difference between something offensive and something satirical? We're going to be talking about that coming up next, so be sure to stay locked and stay tuned right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
All right, let's start off by asking everybody here. Text us 4215. It's Slaughter. Do you use Facebook? I think already most people would say not as much as I used to. However, Facebook is still a big player in the social media, just game. And you can't deny the fact that it has a great influence, a really big influence on everybody who's in that platform and beyond. And so community guidelines is always I would say like the standard that people have to follow in terms of what they're able to post on Facebook. And Facebook has been on fire for years on years, where basically the platform itself is seen as a place that influences all sorts of political, social, economical, just aspects of everyday life. I mean, people still to this day complain that Facebook was used as a platform to instigate or to motivate voters to basically, for a political gain of some kind. And in the latest instance of Facebook, following the guidance of its fledgling oversight board, it has ended this so-called newsworthiness policy, which allowed politicians to skirt many of its content's rules. And now the company has gone forward saying will not treat the content posted by politicians any different from content posted by anyone else. And now, recently, they have updated their community standards to have a policy that will focus on satirical content that is mostly seen as a form of a parody, a joke, a meme, you could say. But they're saying that they are updating their community standards to be a bit more clear on how they handle satirical content. And so in a statement from Facebook, they said that they're adding information to the community standards that make it clear where we consider satire as a part of our assessment of context-specific decisions. And this is a huge change, will allow teams to consider satire whenever assessing potential hate speech violation. Now you're thinking to yourself, it's just a joke, right? But sometimes a joke can go a little bit too far. And I think maybe there is some merit to a policy change such as this, because sometimes memes can be tied to anything. They can be tied to everyday mundane life, but then, sometimes it can be tied to something a little bit more political, or it has a sort of an ulterior motives of some kind. And that's where maybe the line must be drawn, where something could be a little bit too offensive or could be politically motivated. You know what I'm saying? And at times like that, there is this gray area where it's like, is this a joke or is this a statement of some kind? So again, this is a policy that will always, rub heads the wrong way, but at the same time, it's one that is needed for a place that is so broad, such as the platform that is Facebook. So the question here is, and you may answer a text before 4215. It's Slaughter. Do we even join on our YouTube? The question here, a policy like this that it considers and restricts satirical content on Facebook, Is it considered as a form of censorship, or is it a much necessary practice of gatekeeping? One that is much needed, because sometimes people can't take a joke, or a joke influences, or just a joke spirals into a complete chaos of some kind. But you guys, again, this is not only my personal opinion. Everybody can think of it a different way, but I think what's happening here is that just be a little bit more careful with what you post on Facebook, even if you put a disclaimer that it's satirical, because some people, again, just can't take a joke. And that is it, guys, for this hour of Afternoon Karak. I hope you enjoyed our discussions, and if you missed out on any of them, don't worry, we're gonna have our show posted up on YouTube, as well as our podcast alternatives. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Rami, as well as SoundCloud. And just type in Afternoon Karak and you're good to go. I want to give a shout out to Al Zaki Ahmed for tuning in on YouTube. God bless him. You know, just any fans who are tuning in is always an absolute pleasure. But as Hole and Oates would say, you're out of touch and I'm out of time. And unfortunately, I'm out of time. I got to wrap things up, but you guys can stay in touch with Yellow Home, as Anna Schofield and Big Hats are going to keep you guys busy and entertained from 5 till 8 o'clock. Guys, I wish you a fantastic day. See you tomorrow. Same vibe, same time, only here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.